The hall of the Grand Galactic Arts Expo shimmered beneath panels of blue light, each beam curling across the vast ceiling like gentle waves. Delegates from far worlds gathered to showcase talent that defined their species. Some arrived with crystal harps. Others carried sonic orbs or gravity violins. Humans were allowed to participate for the first time, but many in the audience whispered that they did not expect much. In the center of the hall stood a simple stage. Upon it rested a rectangular instrument crafted from polished metal and composite wood. It resembled a piano, but its keys pulsed softly with luminous lines. The instrument was called the Aurora Board. It reacted not only to touch but to intention. Many could play it. Only a few could command it. A group of judges watched the entries with varying expressions. Some leaned forward with interest. Others lounged back with thin smirks. They had witnessed dazzling performances all morning. They were ready to dismiss the humans before they even stepped onto the stage. When the announcer declared the next participant, many turned with surprise. A woman stepped forward. She was older, her hair silver. Her posture steady, yet humble. She wore a plain dark coat and simple shoes. She walked with a measured calm that contrasted the hurried energy of the performers. Before her her name was Mara. Whispers erupted across the hall. Some of the judges exchanged raised brows. One leaned toward another and spoke loudly enough for many to hear. "She can't do that." The others chuckled. Some shook their heads. One judge even waved dismissively. No human had yet impressed them. They believed this woman would be no different. Mara reached the Aurora Board and placed her hands on the frame. She glanced at the crowd with a warm, modest smile. There was no fear in her eyes. Only patience. Only quiet certainty. The announcer asked if she required assistance. She shook her head gently. "I will manage." One judge scoffed. "She can barely walk up the stairs." Another added, "She is too old for a device like that." Mara heard them. She simply breathed deep and prepared. Humans in the audience grew tense. They were already considered the weakest among the gathered species. Many feared that if this performance went poorly, their entry into the expo would be revoked. Mara took a moment to rest her fingers above the glowing keys. The instrument hummed softly, sensing her presence. The lights along its frame shimmered with pale colors, as if greeting an old friend. The judges waited with clear disinterest. A few spectators turned to one another with whispered predictions. That she would strike a few notes and walk off in embarrassment. Mara lowered her first finger. A single tone blossomed like a drop of light, falling into still water. It echoed through the hall. It was soft yet pure, gentle yet steady, a sound of clarity that made even the most cynical judge tilt forward. Mara pressed another key, then another. The notes rose like morning light, slow at first, then blooming into patterns that wrapped around the listeners with warm brilliance. The Aurora Board reacted. Its glowing lines brightened until the keys shone beneath her hands. The frame lifted slightly from the stage, rising half an inch as the internal resonance system activated. Only skilled performers ever triggered this response. A murmur spread across the crowd that the judges sat straighter. Mara closed her eyes and let her hands glide across the keys. Each movement was precise, graceful, confident. She played melodies older than war, older than fear. She shaped sound into vibrant motion. Every note held purpose. Every chord carried a story. The hall fell silent. Even the air seemed to pause. Mara continued to play. Her fingers moved faster now. Not with frantic energy, but with fluid mastery. The Aurora Board glowed brighter. Its edges flared with soft auroras. Colors rippled outward. Gold, blue, violet, silver. They danced above her like shifting wings. The crowd stared in awe. The judges watched with disbelief. One whispered to another in a trembling voice, "This is impossible." The other responded, "Humans are not capable of this." But Mara was only beginning. She shifted into a new sequence. This one more complex, the rhythm layered, the harmonies interwoven. Her hands crossed and separated with graceful speed. The keys flashed beneath her like stars pulsing in a cosmic river. The auroras rose higher. They arched over her head and unfurled across the hall like flowing banners of color. Many had seen advanced performers create patterns of light with the aurora board. Few had shaped full aurora streams. None had ever shaped them so elegantly. The exhausted judge who had mocked her earlier leaned close to her console, her eyes wide. She is directing the harmonics of the board on intuitive resonance. That takes decades of training. Another judge shook his head slowly. But she is human. Humans have no tradition of this craft. The first judge whispered, "Then how does she do it?" Mara continued to play. Her hands no longer seemed limited by age or gravity. She moved with remarkable speed. Yet every gesture was controlled, every flourish deliberate. She shaped a musical universe with absolute ease. The audience leaned forward. Even the most skeptical spectators forgot their doubts. Children stared with wide eyes. Experienced performers felt a tug of admiration. They recognized mastery when they saw it. The hall pulsed with the rhythm she created. The lights reacted to her tones. The air vibrated with living music. The auroras spread across the ceiling and draped down in long shimmering curtains that swayed with her melody. The audience felt as though they sat beneath the sky of another world. Mara opened her eyes. She saw the wonder in every face. She let her hands slow for a moment. The music gentled. The auroras softened into gentle waves. Her voice, soft and steady, flowed into the hall. "This is the song I learned many years ago when our people felt small in a larger galaxy. I learned it so that one day I might show we are capable of more than others believe." She returned her focus to the board. Her hands rose, then descended with renewed power. What followed was nothing short of breathtaking. She unleashed the full strength of her skill. The aurora board roared to life. Light streamed from it like twin comets. The ceiling patterns multiplied. The floor glowed beneath her. The air shimmered with cascading energy. The music swelled into heroic glory. It raced forward like a storm of stars. Yet it remained warm, human, proud. The audience felt it in their hearts. It was not just skill. It was spirit. It was the unmistakable signature of humanity rising against expectations. The judges stared. Their jaws dropped. They had never seen a performance of such command. Not from any species. Not even from veteran champions of the expo. The oldest judge whispered a single sentence that echoed across the quiet committee booth. "She plays like she was born with the board in her hands." The piece reached its final passage. Mara drew her hands inward. The auroras followed. They spiraled around her. They coiled like celestial ribbons and sank back into the board. The keys glowed one last time, then dimmed. She pressed the final note, a steady tone of pure light. The hall held its breath. The note faded. Silence followed. Silence so deep that one could hear the hum of the ceiling lights. Then the hall erupted. Thunderous applause shook the platforms. Spectators rose from their seats. Delegates from distant worlds shouted praise. Even those who doubted humanity moments earlier now cheered with unrestrained admiration. Mara stepped back from the board. She bowed slightly. Her smile gentle and warm. The judges scrambled to compose themselves. One cleared his throat and attempted to maintain dignity. That was exceptional. Another judge rose to his feet. His earlier arrogance vanished. "You must be a master from your world. How long have you trained for this level?" Mara lifted her gaze. "I learned on a broken keyboard in my youth. Later, I practiced on an old piano. I touched an Aurora board for the first time only 2 days ago." The judges froze. The hall fell back into silence. Some in the crowd blinked in shock. Others stared with disbelief. One judge stepped closer. "You are telling the truth." Mara nodded. "It seems the board understands the intentions of the player. I simply shared my heart with it." The youngest judge placed a hand over her mouth. "You are beyond remarkable. Your species is beyond remarkable." The crowd began cheering again. Many chanted the human delegation name. Spectators pushed forward to congratulate her. Some reached out in admiration. Others bowed. Mara remained calm, humble, gracious. For humanity, this moment was more than a performance. It was proof that they could stand equal among advanced civilizations. It was proof that potential dwelled in unexpected places. That greatness did not depend on age, appearance, or origin. It depended on spirit. The expo director stepped onto the stage. His voice trembled with excitement. By unanimous decision, the judges award the Grand Aurora Tribute to Mara of Earth. The hall exploded with applause again. Mara accepted the crystalline trophy with a quiet bow. The director addressed the crowd. "This performance will be recorded as one of the finest in the history of the expo. It demonstrates that talent lives in every species, and that humanity, though new to the stars, carries a brilliance of its own." Mara stepped to the microphone. "I thank you for this honor, but today is not about me. It is about possibility. Never dismiss someone by their appearance. Never judge their worth before seeing their heart. We are all more capable than others assume." Her words resonated deeply. The judges bowed to her. Even those who had mocked her earlier bowed lower than the rest. As Mara left the stage, humans in the audience reached out with pride and admiration. Some shed tears. Others clapped until their hands hurt. The delegates from other worlds approached her with questions and compliments. A musician from a distant moon asked if she would teach her methods. A historian requested permission to archive her performance. A scientist asked if she could study the harmony patterns she produced. Mara smiled and answered kindly, "I will share what I can." Music grows when shared. She walked through the hall with her trophy in hand. The auroras from her performance still lingered faintly on the ceiling. They shimmered softly like a farewell wave. Humanity watched her with deep pride. She had done what no one expected. She had transformed doubt into admiration. She had shown that humans were not weak. Humans were not ordinary. They were capable of rising beyond challenge, beyond limitation, beyond prejudice. Later that evening, the judges held a private meeting. They discussed revising the expo guidelines to recognize humanity as a full artistic contributor. They agreed unanimously. One judge finally spoke the thought they all shared. "Today, we witnessed the heart of humanity." Another added, "And it was magnificent." Far beyond the hall, news networks broadcast Mira's performance across the galaxy. Billions watched in awe. Billions felt the message. Species across distant sectors began discussing exchanges with humans. Music groups sent invitations. Schools requested cultural partnerships. Humanity had entered a new era, not through war, not through wealth, but through the quiet brilliance of a grandmother who refused to be underestimated. That was the power of spirit. That was the legacy of the performance that changed everything. And from that day forward, whenever someone doubted the potential of another, someone would whisper a reminder, "Remember what the grandmother did." Because the galaxy knew she could do that. And humanity could do far more.